some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody to another edition of our Daily Gun Show. Come to you live every weeknight at midnight Eastern, and we talk about guns for an hour. So today is Tuesday. We're kind of shuffling things up. Used to talk about behind the scenes and the nuts and bolts of running a channel or creating content on Mondays, and we talked about Second Amendment stuff on Tuesdays. We'll probably continue to do something like that because Tuesday and 2A sounds pretty close. But today we're going to talk a bit about nuts and bolts stuff, or how to run or how to deal with channels online or content online, and then chat about whatever else comes up and kind of retooling the show here. So sending out some links to people in the biz, people in 2A media, people in the industry that have been on live stuff before that could have joined these conversations. We got John jumping in from Virginia. Thanks for joining.
No problem.
And then I've got Clover jumping in from Texas. Thanks for jumping in.
Thanks for the invite.
You bet. And we got a link out there, like I say, to a bunch of people. So if you want to join us from the gun channel side, let me know. Otherwise, if you're a regular, you've got a link in your email. So with that, it is, what is this, October 15th? And I don't have anything on the calendar, do I? Oh, okay. Excuse me. I do have one thing on the calendar. Today in 1918, the 50 BMG underwent its first trials. So the Modus went through its first trials today in 1918. Late in the year, I guess. What is today? 10? I didn't get all my stuff. I've been blabbing with these guys off here before we went live here. Let's see. On the 15th, it is also the day that one television show premiered in 1951. We'll leave it at that and see if anybody can come up with that. And it looks like Ghost is joining us from Arkansas. Thanks for jumping in. Says he's got a bad connection, and we're on the tube. So how has the tube's phone connection been for people?
Wasn't working well for me the other day.
Okay, I don't remember if that was tube or duck, trying to get everything straight here, but he might have, looks like he's yellow now, so I don't know if Ghost, you can hear us, jump in whenever you want. Anyway, we're just kind of starting the show, and somewhere in here, I'm flipping through my notes, trying, like say, to retool everything. My notes are a little messy, but instead of trying to finish making my notes look good, I just decided to start digging into shows. So we're going to talk about Starship Troopers as the movie today, and I will find this Instagram picture over here, and this will be our gun of the day. And I think I can screen share by moving this over to this one. Ghost, you turned off your camera, so does that give you any better connection over there?
I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Yep, now we got you just fine.
Okay, yeah. I'm on mobile, so who knows?
And yeah, sounds good. And your connection little thingy on the tube, we get a status indicator here. So your connection thing was red when you had the camera on, and now it's green. So I'm guessing that just was a camera lag. All right, so picture of the day is, or gun of the day, is this thing of guns. Did I bring the Bauer out to let you look at that thing, Clover?
Yeah, you did.
Okay, yeah, that's a neat little gun because it's all stainless. It's pretty neat. Little Beretta. I don't remember which one it is that has the safety is the American one, I think. A little SIG or something. A little 26. That's a 27. Tiny little Glock, and these are, and then that's some H&K. So that's our picture of the day, and we can dig into the show. So I just got done saying it to these guys, so instead of me having to say it all for nothing, these guys are getting paid. One of you guys want to say what we're talking about today, and then I don't have to say it again and get it from a different angle.
Yeah, we're going to be discussing for those out there that do all types of social media, honestly, because I think the techniques and the responses and how we deal with it's going to be the same regardless whether you're looking at a forum or live chat or Instagram or whatever it might be, dealing with just the negativity and the comments and the difficulties that we have with certain communication online, which is a huge issue a lot of times because we're dealing with written word. And so definitely can see the issues there with conveying sarcasm and understanding and stuff like that can be miscommunication sometimes.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, yeah, I figured there's always, what's the word? There's nothing new. It's all what goes around comes around. There's things like that. Are those platitudes? It's things that you say so often that you hear them all the time because they happen all the time. That's why people say them, right? So,
Correct.
there's nothing new under the sun. There's another one. And again, I figure what can I add to the conversation, right? I don't care about the minutia of rubber grips available for some new pistol because I honestly don't keep up with any of that stuff. So I do have, I've been a fly on the wall for 15 years, and I've efforted to be part of and work with the different people creating content at various levels, and had the opportunity to see some of the higher end stuff, the fancy stuff, TV shows and radio shows, and a little bit of different media, but just enough to make it dangerous. But seeing it all over the years, I've seen people come and go, and that's the frustrating part, especially when someone that's valid, somebody that's doing something good, they'll come and go. And there's lots of things that are inevitable, right? We all have a lifespan, we all have health, we all have financial and family and real life and all the other stuff that can not be a factor, things that are out of our control for sure. And then we've got our motivation and our interest, and maybe if we've reached a goal, or a goal becomes unattainable, or again something shifts in the environment of the playing field or something, there's things that are kind of a struggle or can be. And then there's other things, like actual things working against you, laws, and I don't know, there's all kinds of things that can get you. So seeing people come, seeing projects happen, seeing things succeed and fail, people come and go, and interests wax and wane. Is that the words? How to deal with that. And one of the things that is always around is the negativity. And John's been in the internet for a long time. Clover's been on the internet doing stuff for a long time. Even working with just plain old websites back in the day, the forums, the boards, the things that were communities back in the day, places for people to gather and chat. You already had, the words trolls and stuff comes from the 90s. Like, that stuff's been around since the boards. It's been around since the earliest of days. And at first it was, from what I understand, ways to filter out novices from experienced types to kind of put levels or boundaries on types of conversations. Like, if you're novice to this, if you're new, then you have a conversation with other novices, but don't get in the way of the pros who are having conversations at a different level over here. And that just amplified and got more extreme over the years. And now you've got personality types involved, and you've got ambitions and abilities all taking factors in this stuff. And what you get is the same dynamic over and over and over, where there's people that are trying to do and people that are trying to build, and lots of different ways to describe it. But the effect is that you've got, I guess, sand getting accumulated, and you got waves coming, and as the things change, you can't help but see patterns. And once you see patterns, you can't help but think, how can we affect this? What can we do to educate or inspire or motivate, or let people know the bigger picture, give them bigger perspective, so maybe they see some things that might seem like insurmountable odds, really are just minor hurdles in the bigger picture, and some skill sets that could be used for some people in the beginning, the same way we encourage them to maybe learn their tools, cameras, or software to an extent that makes it comfortable, so that they aren't challenged by the tech side of creating content, so they're more able to pursue their interests in the content creation or in the conversation that content creates. Same way we want to talk about some of the other strategies. I'd like to eventually talk about funding, so that people's projects incorporate funding from the beginning, so that audiences understand that we can have a PBS, we can have a NPR, we can have a subscription-based, just like SWAT magazine was pretty awesome. And that's because a lot of people thought the content in it was of value until the internet came around, because it was the only thing like it. American Survival Guide, similar, the only nationally distributed survival magazine that was available back then. So people subscribed to it. Some people bought it at the newsstands, but many people subscribed to it, and that's what kept them in business. So they were able to have a professional periodical come out on topics of things that were interesting. And now we're talking about 2A advocacy or people pursuing specific areas of interest. And if the audiences are not aware of the various ways that these projects can be created and maintained, then we might not see the variety of stuff that we can. So again, we're going to try to work on some of the core, I'm going to call them fundamentals of content creation. I'd like to see more professional content creators that are doing stuff on all kinds of topics. And one of the things that, like I say, if you look at the come-ins and go-ins or the trends over time, or whatever you want to call, like people's level of interest, one of these things that influences them is the negativity, like Clover was saying. So with that, we got people watching. We'll see what's going on out in the comments and what. Dead Horse has a link out there if you want to jump in. John, Ghost, Clover, starting off with this topic, where would just being dropped on you, I didn't send you an email with like a bunch of script or anything, so just having this all dropped on you, what directions you think we're going?
Well, I think that probably, I mean, a good point is to maybe start out and define exactly what we're talking about with this, because there are going to be people out there that don't understand. And there's that, as I talked about a few minutes ago, I mean, it's difficult a lot of times, and I've made that mistake, and I'm sure others have too, whether it's in the comments of a YouTube video or on an Instagram post or whatever it might be, that there's just sarcasm and there's somebody being just snarky or funny. It's not, meant to be malicious. It's not meant to tear down or bring down. It's just taken the wrong way because of maybe the words they choose or where they put a comma or, something really that simple. So, I mean, yeah, I start off with saying what are we talking about when we're talking about the negative comments or the quote unquote trolls? And I define it just as I said. I think it's comments, it's posts, it's memes, it's whatever that are posted in such a way that is trying to marginalize the conversation or the point of whatever is going on. Is trying to get around the point, circumvent the point. And a lot of times it's based more on a personal attack rather than anything factual having to actually do with the content or the original post or whatever it might be that they're commenting on. And that's kind of the way I see it. I think that's what we're talking about tonight.
Oh, that's definitely a chunk of it. Throwing it out there as an open question so that it's difficult to answer and it gets, the ball rolling. Because instead of just throwing a golf ball into a bunch of other golf balls here, I wanted to throw a rock into the shredder and see, what direction you guys took it. So I don't know if John or Ghost wants to take some other direction.
That was really
Live
strange.
streaming is on.
We're back.
Maybe. So on the tube or whatever, right? You've got a place with the three dots down at the bottom right when you're running the show, where you can put the stream key, and then you've got YouTube over there that gives you the stream key and then has its own button, right? So the thing that we just heard, the robot lady, was from GunTube saying your live stream is stopped. So I just went back over to YouTube, grabbed the stream key again, put it back into the three dots and hit on GunStreamer. No, excuse me. Fuck, GunStreamer doesn't have live. I'm saying on GunTube, I hit the three dots and added the key, and then it just said live streaming and started, and we're connected again. So since I never went over to YouTube and ended, it was still accepting a feed. It's just that the GunTube feed had stopped, so I reinitiated the feed with the same key, and we're good to go. So if that ever happens to everyone, you don't have to freak out and start hating Night Strike about this. It's just whatever. internet, right? Mike's doing a one-man operation, providing something that the second largest platform on the internet provided us for years. No big deal. I just want to throw some tech in there because this show ain't for people that need training wheels. So thanks, Mike, for creating the content platform that lets us be this adept. All right, so we're back, and John was talking about an experience with negativity today.
Yeah. So basically, for those that don't know, we have a thing where we're going to be giving away a Canic firearm, thanks to the century, to a single mom, and then I'm paying for the training out of my own pocket. Uh, and somebody posted about it, um, and some guy came along and he was like, "Well, that's nice and everything, but you should give the gun to us to give away because I do training and we give guns away at a discounted rate." Which basically we're like, why would we do that? No, we want to have control. Because just because if we give it away to someone, I want to make sure it gets to someone who actually will use it and not to a friend of a friend or whatnot. We're very cordial about it, saying, hey, we appreciate everything that you're doing, but we think we're going to keep this in the house to give away. And his response was, well, that's cool and all, but I guess you have to protect your money. I get like basically trying to say that it was about making money, protect your methods of making money. It's like, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Mm-hmm.
that's not that's not exactly that. If it was an attack on basically my integrity, which
Yeah,
it's not
typical
cool.
tactic. So yeah, that's exactly the kind of stuff that can happen. So again, we're gonna keep going with Ghost here, but unless you had something else, that's
No, that's it. I just want to give an example of some of the stuff that, and I think it has to go with, I guess they never reached out to a company to see if they would want to get involved, or maybe they did and got turned down.
oh no, that
But
it could be. But it's not necessary for you to need. It's the same as the it's the same scenario. It's the same ambush that the home invader will use and say, "Oh, sure, I invaded their home while they were asleep, and I broke in. I was not invited, and I was there without authorization, and I was stealing things, but they didn't need to shoot me. I didn't have a gun, and they didn't need to shoot me." That's the same scenario. That's like giving someone a two options, neither of which you asked for or is appealing, and then doubling down on either option you would have chose. They would have never been satisfied. They would have said, "Oh, it's just a Canic, it's not a Glock." They would have said, "When's the next one?" There's no way to satisfy some people. So that's one of, as I well, I'm going to get to Ghost here. I'm not here to play therapist or nothing, but yeah, that's definitely the kind of thing that's just one example of about 5 or 6 strategies that are used. And we're going to talk about some of the stuff I've dug into, personality types and strategies of the people that are of the type to use these strategies. But Ghost, again, without tarnishing it too much, or anything to throw in before we get going?
Yeah, just I mean, the negativity in general, especially in the social media realm, a lot of it comes down to, I think, of people, the people that spend their time being negative are the same ones that I think are they do it to make themselves feel better. That's a general thing. Everyone knows that most people put people down because they want themselves to feel better. But the funny thing is a lot of the people that are out there being negative on comments or in posts or whatever are the same ones that aren't willing to jump into the deep end of the pool and do it themselves. They'd rather criticize the people that are because it makes themselves feel better. That being said, I think that if people get into this game, whatever game you want to call it, the social media, being out there, being a creator, an influencer, whatever you want to call it, they have to understand from the very beginning that there's going to be negativity. And if you listen to all the negativity, you're never going to make it. It's what you, if you, as long as you're confident what you're putting out is valid and you're confident and you appreciate what you're doing, then let the people that be negative because they're the same ones that are afraid to do it themselves.
Right on. So we're not here to, that's all valid stuff, and it's all pieces of what I've been discovering. So again, my goal here with the Daily Gun Show is to provide, it's always been to provide something different. I'm not here to sell you a product or even keep you buying gun stuff. I'm a collector. I'm an investor. I think it's neat to own stuff and fiddle with it, tinker with it. If you want to acquire, I mean, I've definitely acquired. I'm not going to shame anybody for acquiring. It keeps capitalism going, but that's not my goal with the show. My goal isn't to feast on that pleasure or to feed it or anything like that. There's plenty of stuff that'll get you into buying stuff. What I like about guns is the bigger picture of them, the symbol of individual liberty, freedom, and the mindset the framers had, the people that left tyranny and oppression that come here over the years, not just the framers, of course, people that are taken here out of their will, people that were here already, the people that came here, the people that followed, the people that snuck in. We're the melting pot of all that, right? And guns are what allows us to be free individuals. It adds the lethal consequence for real criminals, and it gives us something to rally behind that is a physical manifestation of that individual freedom and liberty. Guns are awesome. So I like to talk about more than just the news of the day. I'm not going to be led by the theater, the scripted programming of the traditional media, the stuff that was created called programming, literally called programming, when the modes of distribution of information were controlled entirely and were programmed in a 1984 Orwellian way into our homes. So many people are content to use their computers and their internet the same as they use television, and we don't need to do that. That is not possible. That is not necessary. This is you can think what you want, Slim, but this was not prompted by anything except for 15 years where it's watching people like yourself who got shit on by two people now defend those two people, Stockholm Syndrome, and allow that relationship, that little thing you guys got going there, to shit on others who might find it not worth getting into the stickiness of all that. And that's unfortunate. And it's sad that the only option you've got that you feel like you can contribute is to shit on things. Like, the only way I can be part of this is to wipe poop on the walls. So if you feel the need to suggest that your influence, you are defending them right now. I feel if you need to feel like you are contributing or you caused this particular show, go for it. Go for it, dude. It's not the 15 years of watching this happen and the fact that we've got people like Cheryl Todd and John Crump. We've got people like the Trenchwork Chronicles. We've got people like Skip. We've got people like James Kalita. We've got people like Antonia and Nina doing the Trigger Warning 2A. We got people like Tony. We got people like KD. We got people like Aiming for the Truth. Well, I already said Aiming for the Truth. We got people like Faster. We've got people like the DC Project. So you want to take credit for it? Go for it, dude. You're trolling. So defend the people that attacked you and are now using manipulation to have you fight their battles for them. Congratulations. So I'm not going to here to be therapy for Slim. I just figured I'd address it since he brought it up live. But because of the things I just mentioned, that we've got a 2A rally coming up that's getting a lot of feedback from people that are of personality types and that are using old, played out strategies that have existed since the 90s. They're using a term that was created in the 90s. So they're doing old-fashioned stuff on new platforms again and again and again. We don't need to be restricted to old, reactions to that stuff. We can change that. So yeah, that we're going to be talking about that specific stuff, but more importantly, the concept of not getting discouraged and how to put that in perspective for people that are creating content. Again, like on a national level, in different mediums, because right now we're on YouTube, and this live thing is a little bit unique. I forgot earlier, somebody said, it doesn't really matter what platform you're on. It does. When it's live, it's different than when it's in a magazine, right? When it gets written and the letter to the editor comes in months later, and you've got all the time in the world to write a response, and it comes different on a forum or back in the days on the boards where you could write something, get it all figured out, spell check it, drop it, come back 8 hours later and see what's cooking. When it's live, you got a whole different type of person, a whole different speed of conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we've got a situation where there's new people coming into the mix, and over the years we've had people come and go. So what can we do to change that, right? So I went online and I started looking up how to deal with negativity, how to deal with comments, how to deal with motivation, right? And started looking at these kind of things. And amazingly, since it's been around since the 90s and there's only like 6 different personality types and there's only like 6 different strategies that are used, it's all written out there. So there's all different ways to absorb that info. And there's lots of different things. So kind of what everybody talked about earlier, what Clover talked about, that's a portion of it for sure. What John talked about, that's a specific strategy that's used, the 2 bad arguments, the 2 doors that lead to bad results. And then what Ghost was saying again is kind of specifically. So then there's also the victim, the playing the victim. There's all kinds of these. Like I say, there's about 6 different strategies. In addition to that, there's other ways of perceiving the people's interactions. And part of this concept is, or part of my, what am I trying to say? Like the new programming, the new scheduling, the new format, I guess, for the show, for the Daily Gun Show, will be to address the negativity side of it. Because if I get into the various projects I'm working on, one of them being Minuteman University, there's 2 pieces there, the history and then the skill set. And part of the skill set that I know I'm lacking is the communication side. I never went to school for that. It's not something I strive for. My goal isn't to be some kind of public speaker or to be some kind of writer or nothing. I'm just dealing with what's necessary in order to get information across, right? So that's as much for me as for anybody. And part of the challenge of putting the Minuteman University project out there is to attract people like Brian or like Woods, who knows stuff, to come in and contribute. People like Smeggy, who is able to dig in and find information and gather it so that we can, again, provide for the next wave of people who need to defend our liberty. So when we have something that's happened repetitively, let's take a practical look at it and compile, archive some strategies that people have used in the past to deal with these, again, consistent, regular types of personalities, and look at them practically. So I'm going to end my little rant here with a couple of things that I think sum up what we'll be talking about. And I think I'm going to do it on Thursdays. We're going to continue to do Mondays with tech stuff, like positive tech stuff, how to use your phones, how to use your software, how to use the platforms, how to create, how to be the artist part of creating, how to be the efficient content facilitator, how to effortlessly take video, put it up and distribute it, and deal with it. Then we'll have a day where we're going to talk about, one of the days of the week, we're going to start talking about funding and profiting and paying for, because there's lots of behind the scenes fees and things, and it's probably not a service for anybody to say, let's just focus on the fun stuff that's involved in content creation, but let's get into some of the nitty gritty with what it actually costs, right? Because there's all kinds of little stuff, and somebody might get into it thinking, oh, I can buy a new camera, that's no big deal. But then you get a tripod and blah, 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 and it just gets into the weeds. And I'm cheap, so you guys know I don't get into buying stuff just for buying it, and potentially even get into some pros and cons, because some people are really into buying microphones or the best computers or a tripod that's worth something, and have some give and take, so we can think about not just the behind the scenes and the nuts and bolts of content creation, but the dollars and cents of content creation. And then on Thursday, I think we'll talk about the negative side, and that's some of the other things besides the trolls and stuff. The trolls are, again, they're there all the time, but let's put some things into perspective. 5.6% of online users are the trolls. So Not very many. They're just effective, and they can be loud when they want to be, right? Because any single person could be loud when they want to be. But how much you want to focus on it, though, who you're creating your content for, is something that we'll talk about. But in addition to that kind of stuff, which again is only 5.6% of what we're dealing with when we're creating content, we've got to talk about topics that we don't necessarily want to talk about. When is it appropriate to bring up other topics with our firearm stuff? So many people are so apt to say, oh, let's just never talk about any other topic. That can't be good. I mean, when is an absolute always good, right? Like very rarely, right? So I think that might be interesting to talk about on Thursdays. And then there's other negative stuff. Well, we can get into all that. So just to talk, again, to finish up my summary of how we're going to, at least going forward here for a while, kind of reformat the Daily Gun Show to be kind of content creator centric. I guess another reason for this is because after the Gun Rights Policy Conference and the AmCon, again, I'd much rather see everyone know each other, be friends with each other, understand each other's projects, be comfortable with each other's skill sets, so that when we gather and meet as industry or at AmCon or something like that, we can make the best use of that time and actually chat about the things that are difficult in real, on this kind of format, but use this type of format as efficiently as possible to get all that little stuff out of the way. And the stuff that's just difficult to do in person, there's definitely things that are easier to do here, right? And we'll use it. So with that, I just wanted to say there's a couple of things I've looked up in doing maybe, hours worth of looking around, figuring out a playlist of videos to watch and address dealing with negativity online from all different angles, from TED Talks to maybe doctors doing a seminar, listen to some business kind of things, some therapy type of thing from people that are, the actual victims of it all, from the psychological, like where these people come from, and then from even the trolls themselves put up videos on how to do it good. Like there's interesting things to look at out there. And I thought it would be like, oh, let's talk about it as a topic one week. And it's like, wow, there's so much more to it. So again, we're going to deal with it on Thursdays. I guess the one other big thing to take from it, or take from focusing on it, would be the potential we have to draw parallels with the antis, because so many of the strategies used by, quote unquote, a troll, again, somebody with a personality type that wants to disrupt or, whatever reason wants to, is forced to only do what they can do. That same kind of, strategy, that same kind of recipe is often used by the antis. As I was listening to this stuff and watching stuff, I was like, wow, that's almost like, one of the arguments for a gun-free school zone or something. So I think some of this stuff will be dual purpose. So anyway, I guess to wrap it up, one of the neat things, I think one of the best ways I heard it described was there's two ways to have the tallest building in town. One is to build the tallest building, and the second is just to have a building and knock all the others down. So where do you guys want to take it from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think that building the building is the hard part. You've got to put blood, sweat, and tears into that building. You can use that as your online project, whatever that project is you're going to put all of your effort into building this tall building. And it's much easier to try to take that building down, whether or not they're trying to take you down or they're trying to make their building look taller. If someone's building was taller than yours, then instead of working hard and adding on to your building, let's just try to cut the other buildings down so that, once again, my building's taller. Use that analogy. But I think a lot of it comes down to self-worth. Is if you truly care and are passionate about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to say, I don't even worry. I don't even, first of all, know how tall my building is, nor do I care how tall other buildings are. I'm working as hard as I can to build my building up how I want it built, and it might look different than others. It might not be as pretty as others, but I don't care what other buildings are doing. Does that make sense?
Heck yeah. Yeah, you just encapsulated about 3 or 4 videos I watched today.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, it's a situation to where, maybe I don't want my building tall, right? Maybe I want my building to cover ground. Maybe I want it to be like the Tulsa Fairgrounds. You know what I mean? I want
Yeah.
a big, huge, 1 story, big, huge building that covers a lot of acreage instead of being, 50 stories tall. So, yeah, it just depends. And I think you have to have that healthy perspective to understand that when you look out and you see other projects, because this gets into the negativity and the trolling a little bit, I suppose, but sometimes we see what people should be doing, and we're projecting our perspective onto that particular project or channel or whatever it might be, rather than stopping and taking the opportunity to see that for what it is.
Yeah, what I think a lot of it has to deal with is people look at like what other people are doing and they think, well, I'm trying to do the same thing, but I'm not as successful. Instead of looking at that person and saying, hey, why are they successful and why am I not that successful? They automatically assume that that person is using some type of trick or playing unfairly. So they want to tear down the buildings to make everyone level with them instead of building themselves up.
hmm Yeah, there's like I say, I'm no therapist. It'd be interesting to get somebody who knows something or enough to make it dangerous, perhaps. But that's, from what I understand, a leveling technique where instead of actually having a level comparison, you tilt your head or you do something to suggest the other side is one way and ignore stuff on your side so that you can your challenge is that, oh well, we're both contributing, therefore the assumption is that they're both equal efforts, when again there's some leveling, I guess. And I'm no, like I say, I'm not a therapist or whatever the term would be, the correct term for this, but it's certainly interesting once you start to again look at the situation from different um, perspectives, I guess. Like I say, difference between someone who's creating the havoc, and the techniques, and then the person who's evaluating them clinically versus the victim who's describing, what their perception is of the whole thing, versus, somebody who's just maybe a more clinical, I guess. Here's how you do stuff online, and 5.6% of it's going to be garbage, and then there's the people that are, and I don't know what the word is because I'm not up on all the names of all the different philosophies, but that kind of what Ghost was saying, that there's the philosophy of just do what you're doing, and only be aware of what's going on out there if it's like seriously at risk to you, but otherwise, as long as you're efforting and you know what you're doing, to not worry about it. But anyway, so when you look at it from all those different angles, there's certainly, like I say, I've got weeks worth of stuff we'll talk about, strategies, like I say, from different angles on how to deal with them. And again, with potentially we'll have some people come in to offer from outside of just our perspective, because mine, again, I'm an amateur figuring this out. I'm somebody who's interested in doing something, finding a challenge, and instead of succumbing to it, I'm going to try to overcome it. And I'm not going to just overcome it to be on the other side. I want to overcome it and then drop a rope, right? So some of this stuff turns out it's looking, like I say, depending on which way you want to look at it, these are people that have ingrained patterns of, what's the word, like behavior patterns. They're types of personalities and the way that they act. I think Ghost had said something about, that they're trying to screw you up. I don't even think sometimes they're trying to screw you up. A lot of times I can think of a couple of people who think they're helping you. They're like, you need to toughen up, sport. So I'm going to give you a noogie every time I see you, and that's going to teach you how to be stronger, right? Every time I see you, I'm going to slap you on the back really hard, because that's going to get push the hairs out of your chest, right? Like there's those kind of people who think they're helping, and they may not actually be discouraging the person they're slapping on the back really hard, but it's the same idea as the men at work sign. If you're a man, you don't give a shit about a men at work sign because it's just a damn sign, right? What do you care? But if you're a little girl and every single time you see that, you're being told that men work, I don't know, maybe it's different if you're growing up a little girl. So if you're not willing to think about how the other person's interpreting your stuff, then are you a bully? Like, just because you don't interpret yourself as a bully, are you? And I think by learning this, again, we're going to see some techniques that the antis use against us, because these are just manipulations that personalities types use against others. There's personality types that need others in order to be the other side of their personality, right? Somebody who's always got a problem, somebody who's always got an emergency, right? They need someone that they can rescue them from those emergencies, right? Like, that's a generalization, but that can manifest as a super discouragement for somebody who's just trying to get some content out there, and they get caught in that quagmire. If we can work together and show them that, hey, there's a light at the end of that tunnel, there's a way to deal with somebody who's always got an urgent need, and there's always another GoFundMe for something. There's ways to deal with that. And if we can help individuals get stronger to deal with this stuff, perhaps our community can get stronger at this. And I know that what's going to happen online as we get into platforms like YouTube and Facebook, where this stuff is rampant, where personality types are able to abuse other personality types that don't come from a mindset of manipulation, who come from a mindset of, I'd like to render help when possible. Those people get manipulated by people who are the manipulators. And if we can, well, I know our population will overcome that. If as gun owners we can help lead the way, a transition of our society, our online culture, from a quagmire through this, then of course we're going to bring guns with us, and individual freedom and liberty that they symbolize will come with us too, right? If I get too big, then leave the chat. But I'm trying to change the fucking world already. We're not trying to put a camera on people cheering or something, right?
Yeah, can I bring up something that Z was out there talking about, and about respect and the value?
You can come in anytime he wants, of course. Island Z is one of the hosts of this show.
Absolutely, but I think Z has a point that is valid, is the respect factor. And Clover and I were talking a little earlier off air, and it's something that people seem to not understand, that just because you may not like a message or a piece of content or the direction of a project or a channel or whatever you want to call it, doesn't mean that it's invalid. It just means that you may not find it interesting. So respecting someone's project or vision or message, regardless if you agree or believe in it, is something that within the community we have to understand, that it's important to respect each individual's message and vision, as long as it's not being disruptive to the whole. There are many pieces of the pie, and we have to respect each individual piece of the pie, as long as the pie is still, solid and it's got a great foundation crust. I don't know, that analogy is bullshit, but what I'm saying is I think that the respect thing has to happen. I think that whether or not you like someone should not play into the fact of, do you think their message is valid? So yeah, I think the respect and all of that is something that has to change.
Well, it also goes in, a lot of it goes into, when you start talking about that respect, is, respect them for what? And in order to figure that out, I mean, you have to step back, look at things, and figure out that perspective, right? The perspective that they're coming from. What is their goal? What are they trying to accomplish? That's their projects, and it's their baby, and so they're going to drive that whatever direction that they feel. And some, let's be honest, I mean, some channels, creators, other things. I like the super chat by John. That was nice. Great self promotion there, bro. You threw me off track with that. But yeah, it's, a lot of creators out there, they're, or whatever it might be, right? Creatives, let's say, whatever kind of label you want to put on it. They may not be good at getting across the point of their project. They may not be good at being able to explain the direction or tell the direction. It's something they're passionate about. It's something they're doing, but they just haven't come to that realization. They haven't drawn that out, and made those plans. So yeah, I think that that's an important thing that we we kind of offer the benefit of the doubt sometimes as well, especially to the point because you've got a lot of people out there that I respect them up until the point that it's the evidence is just so overwhelming, right? And what I mean by that is a lot of times you don't, like I said, you don't know the motives, you don't know the direction they're going in, you don't know. All you're seeing is that content, and then one of the catalysts, and then Ghost and I, this is what we were talking about earlier. You meet these people personally at an event, or there's actually an effort made on one side or the other to pick up the phone and you actually have a conversation, and then that's where you get a really good feel of what type of person that is and everything. And at that point you can make that decision pretty easily. But as far as the whole concept of tearing somebody down and all of that, I think that that's just um, I don't know. I don't know what the phrase. There's a phrasing. There's a platitude for it, and I can't think exactly of what it is. It's I want to say if you don't have anything good to say, don't say nothing at all. But that's not what's in my brain. But certainly a similar concept that just let them do their thing. Have not necessarily respect for them if you know them, and they are a horrible person, in real life, and they are on their channel and everything else. Okay, I get it, but they have the right to be here. They have the right to do. So just let them do it and go off, and I guess find more positive things to focus your attention on. Focus on a good thing is we talk about building up these buildings and whatnot. Focus on helping others build up, which is kind of what this conversation here is about, and a lot of conversations that we have week in and week out.
Yeah, and I think that some of what the issue is by a lot of people that are somewhat negative or bring negativity, I don't think a lot of it has to do with the message or the vision that that person's putting out. I think that some people don't agree with how they do it, how they present that message. And that's something that people just going to understand. Like Gia said earlier, there's different personality patterns and there's different ways that people do things, and they're better at some things better than others. But I think a lot of it is are you hating the message or are you hating the delivery? Are you hating the project itself or are you hating how the project is being facilitated? And there's two different sides of that.
It is, but and again, I'm not a therapist or whatever, but it's the person who thinks positively, let's say, just because I don't know the right terms, but it's the person who thinks creative and positive forward that thinks, oh, they must have an alternative message. But there's personality types that get pleasure in watching other people suffer. And that doesn't necessarily mean they step on things, but it can certainly mean that they will watch, someone in frustration try to deal with all their groceries or something. And where other people will go, oh, I wish I could get over there and help that person, or if I wonder if I could get over there in time to actually render aid, or if it would be appropriate, right? They're going, this is entertaining to me. It's amusing to me, right? And that's just a personality type. I suspect if you don't have it, then you're not going to appreciate that there's just people like that. So there are definitely people out there that understand that, how the systems work and can manipulate from awareness, not necessarily superior tech knowledge, just familiarity, repetition and understanding basic traits. Hey, if you throw somebody who's being positive a banana peel, they slip on it, and it's amusing to me. So it doesn't matter what your message is. It's just the fact that you're vulnerable to their manipulation. Then there's people that, again, the word trolling doesn't come from little green creatures under bridges. It comes from the way people fish. It comes from throwing something out and having multiple lines out and then sitting back and waiting and just moving along and waiting to see what you catch, right? And that's the goal there is they're literally just out to disrupt and to find pleasure in that. Now, again, it might not be out of malice, it might be out of frustration, but it's putting it on the content creator to deal with all that. And we're talking about 5.6% of a population. So that means 85% are either going to find it tedious that you're dealing with it, like uninteresting, or you're just wasting their time. So another thing is, my goal is to let people know that it's not our goal to be their therapists, and it's better off for everyone involved for us to move along. And it's quite often something, I mean, to get into, again, I'm not sure different types, what's the name of this type of philosophy, but a lot of what a person's holds up and issues are on them. So if they're going to be worried about it, like when Slim said shit earlier, it frustrates me to no end, because I think Slim is cool, but he defends people who cause, that aren't. Let's put it that way. And that's frustrating. So, that's a difficult thing to deal with as someone who'd rather include. But at some point you have to, again, there's different strategies, but you have to make a decision with as a content creator, where are you going to put your focus? Are you going to create an opportunity for people who want to disrupt to do so easily? Or are you going to make it difficult or unnecessary, unwilling? If you're unwilling and make it difficult, then they really have to be deliberate. And then it has to be someone who, it has to be someone who literally hates you, your message, something to the point where they're going to go beyond, to the point of being criminal in order to bother you.
I think John raised his hand.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing that G Web said about like where the term trolling comes from. And also by looking at the term trolling, they're throwing out a wide net and seeing who they can catch. So usually if you don't respond, they will move on to another target who they can piss off and get a reaction from. Because usually that's what they want.
Yeah, one thing that I think about when we're talking about this, I had a couple of thoughts, and I don't remember all of them, but one of them as we was talking was, when these people come in and you've got these people that troll, and it's, do you have a situation where that person that's coming in, that's trolling, that's tearing down, that's whatever, are they offering an alternative? Are they doing anything but being destructive?
Well, constructive.
Because somebody coming in and saying, hey, the way you're doing this is crap, and then next week they're 3 times my channel size or something else, it's like, oh, okay, well, maybe the way I'm doing it is crap, right? There's some validity to what what they've been saying. It's not just malicious. They've walked the walk. They've proven something at that point, and they have an alternative.
Well, okay, you brought up a specific that is unusual, that doesn't actually happen, because very few people, like Ghost said, that are actually creating give any interest in what other people are doing. If anything, it's to encourage and work with. Very few people that are actually growing are doing so while actively destroying other people. But that does happen, I suppose. But where I thought you were going to go with that was, again, sort of what Ghost was saying. If you're looking at it from the positive side, okay, every interaction is an opportunity is an opportunity, period. So you can always make silver line. You can always make, what's the words? Silver lining, something out of something. I forget the shit out of something.
I always make silver out of shit, but that's that's the thing.
There you go. So there's a optimistic looking at it, but then it's not. There's again, when I started digging into it, there's it's not difficult. I mean, it's pretty obvious when you think about it, but there's a difference between constructive criticism, somebody who has an inability to constructively criticize, to offer suggestions, but they do it in a way that's offensive or weird, and then versus manipulation. Again, personality types that have, over the years figured out through intentional or just repetitive methodology, and I'm just using words that I copied off of watching videos all day, but there's basically personality types that use that positive, optimistic personality type as their prey, and they know that, like, oh well, everybody's going to always second guess. They depend on that, and sometimes it's as easy as just changing the dynamic, because they're not, most of the time, the negative person isn't necessary, and sometimes they're not coming in with hey, I've got a better option. They're just coming in because like they got nothing else better to do and you're doing it wrong, and they're going to let you know. So there's times when if you were to, again, there's all kinds of strategies, but there's not a need as the content creator to figure out where they're coming from. Maybe that's the fastest way to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are people that are definitely out there, just in life in general, that just aren't happy unless they're unhappy. And sometimes they create drama just to feel better about themselves. And I mean, Dead Horses out there saying some people like to have the house on fire so they get the firemen to light the fire. And that's what it is, there are people out there in life, and we're not talking about any content creation, we're not talking about two-way, we're talking about life, that for some reason are just unhappy with where they are in life. And if they see someone out there that is doing some good or seemingly is happy with what they're doing, they're going to shit on that just to make themselves feel better. That is a behavioral trait that has been documented forever. The problem that you have is, like you and Clover were saying, is constructive criticism is never a bad thing. It's like you said, if you have something to say about it, that's right. Then bring an alternative. Bring something that will change. And hell, if you don't like the way I'm doing, instead of shitting on it, just say, hey, I don't like what you're doing, and there are other people that feel the same way. What if you tried it this way? At least you're being part of the solution instead of the problem.
So we don't have to again solve it tonight. I really just wanted to dig in and get people's mouths watering for the new show, or get rid of you, because if you're not interested in the kind of stuff I'm interested in, I've never been here to entertain anybody. I'm here to offer what I think is necessary or interesting for the web, useful for people that I'd like to see succeed. So again, we're going to talk about crowdfunding, we'll talk about subscription type stuff, we'll talk about creating product, we'll talk about talking with gun shops and other manufacturers, industry, outside the industry, and hopefully once we talk about those things, which I've experienced at least, I'm not going to say I'm an expert, but I'm certainly well rehearsed on some of those, and I'm just dabbled in some, but I'll keep chatting about them until somebody comes along who knows more and offers other insight, because again, I think that we're suffering as a community and as a segment of society as gun owners to be dealing with part-time advocates. I'd really like to see, Cheryl Todd, who has a successful business and stuff, isn't able to travel all around. And you might not value her or what she does, but to have someone who is unique, Cheryl Todd, at both Republican things and at gun things and at Arizona things, at things specific to, she goes to a museum thing with, museum people. So like Clover talks about bridges. I'm going to talk to you about maybe, I don't know if mortar is a better way or another way of describing that, but talk about somebody that glues the community together, the person that can uniquely bring perspective from segment to segment to segment in a positive, efficient way. Somebody like her, and again, she's stretched. I can't even imagine her schedule, but she's having trouble keeping up financially, and she's got multiple successful businesses. So if we're going to depend on people like Cheryl, the people like the guy who runs Brownells, well, there's two of those people, and there's 300 and something million gun owners. So if we can't figure out a way to redistribute, to re-emphasize the value of our money, or whatever the hell we're calling it, I'm going to throw Matt under the bus, because he's easy to throw under the bus, and I've been friends with him for a decade. But he's talking about going to see, like, I lost track, like so many movies for the rest of this year. I literally lost track. Like, I kind of want to see a Star Wars when it comes out, and I think maybe two of the other ones he talked about. But I will not pay going to a movie theater to see them. I'll eventually see those movies, but what I'm saying, I'm not going to the movie theater, and I'm not saying he's wrong for going to the movie theater, but that's just the kind of world we live in. We're paying a lot of money for stuff, and if we can't figure out as capitalists how to have a few, I'm not asking for everybody who wants to throw their hat in the ring, but it would be cool to have a few full-time Second Amendment advocates out there, more than just a John Lott. John Lott's kind of old, and he's writing books, and I like the guy and I respect him, but he says the same speech every time, and it's a valuable, important speech about 4473s, but I'd like to have 12 John Lotts, right? I want 10 John Lotts. I want at least 5 John Lotts, right? And we've got people on Patreon that are getting $20,000 a month. $20,000 a month, and the best you get out of them is they're going to the rally, right? I want to see, projects like the stuff I mentioned before, to where we're full time and we're aware of that. We become a stronger, more useful, more effective Second Amendment community, culture, industry, whatever the hell we want to call us, because we become a thing. So anyway, we'll keep working on that kind of stuff on the show here. Like I say, we didn't need to solve trolls tonight, and whatever. There's no way to approach it. That's the other problem. There's no way to approach it without one of them winning, because they're always out there. There's 5.6% of them. That means, like, if I post 100 posts, there's going to be 5 trolls. It might be the same guy. It might be 5 different trolls. I don't know. I pissed off lots of people in 15 years. And then there's the people that just casually walk by. So, they're always going to be out there. If we address this any singular time, some troll wins. They're like, oh yeah, I got them over the brink. They mentioned it, right? We've seen that earlier. So I'm going to start talking about it every Thursday. And it's kind of the same thing as the 2A workshop. Like, what do we gain by doing this once in a while in the 2019, when we have an internet where we could literally be connected forever, when there are literally channels that just stream, dolphins in a pool someplace, 24/7. Like, we should be able to have 2A conversation pretty often. So that's what I'm going to continue to do. See, Angelina's out there. Thanks for all her help with everything. And I guess we'll end all of that so we can go into whatever topics. We can stick around as long as you guys want, but I kind of want to end that because I don't want to get into the minutia, only because literally I've been listening to these videos all day making notes. So everything you guys bring up, I'll be able to go, oh, here's a blah, blah, blah. And we could go on forever. So instead, we'll talk about it every Thursday for the next few months. And hopefully what will come out is a stronger community that can either ignore, challenge, dissuade, whatever the word is, sidestep, and ideally challenge a couple of these people so that instead of being useless, putting effort into uselessness, they can be effective and maybe, if nothing else, amusing and leveraged to be used, because they're basically following stupid recipes from the olden days. Like, that's easy to manipulate. We can screw right with them and carry them off to do things we want them to do, perhaps.
Can I bring up a funny troll though? It's a kind of serious subject, so this might cleanse everyone's palate. But someone took a picture of a M1 Garand, and they wrote on there, the Second Amendment is for hunting rifles like this, not weapons of war. And then they posted it on the Beto 2020 Reddit, and everyone's like, oh yeah, that's great, and not realizing that they're all being trolled. So I thought that was kind of funny. Did we get dumped?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
I don't know.
Something happened.
Well, I mean, I'll pretend that we're still alive. Kind of going back into just maybe wrapping all this up is the conversation, and we've all had this conversation together as groups, but the conversation is what's important. And sometimes a conversation can get ugly. Sometimes a conversation can be enlightening, but we need a little bit, if I'm not wrong, I don't think I am, but I think we all need a little bit of someone calling you out on something or someone disagreeing with you, because that's where the good conversation has. If we all agree on everything that we're doing and saying, then it is the ultimate echo chamber. And being around and being available to listen to criticism and to dissenting points of view is important, because that's where the conversation has. And that is ultimately what we're here for, is to have conversations on trying to make our lives and our community and our culture as strong as we can get. So there is value in differences of opinion, But when you're having a difference of opinion just to have a difference of opinion, you're really not moving the needle forward. We've got to have conversations. And like Clover said earlier, if someone has a problem with me, I'm very easy to find. My email and phone number are everywhere. Call me, email me, get me in a chat, whatever you want to do. I'll have a conversation with you, because until you know someone, if I've never met you in person and you're going and you're judging me or one of my friends by what you know online, then be man enough to have a conversation with me in person. And at that point, if you still don't like me, at least you've had an opportunity to voice your opinion, and you've had the opportunity to listen to me. And if you don't like me, you don't like me. That's fine. I've got enough friends. But hiding behind facades and just being critical all the time is not moving the needle forward at all.
I think I think it's the anonymity aspect of the internet that empowers people to like be trolls and assholes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to end it from this, but yeah, that's a whole nother part of it, is exactly because there's these personality traits, and then the anonymity allows them to either just go nuts with it or hide just behind it enough. But there's definitely whole, like, even back in the 90s, there was already on the boards like studies to the extremes I guess people would go to when they are online versus in real life. But so that's something that's not new, and and again, we're not doing anything by just talking about it briefly. So again, we'll Thursdays, those are the kind of topics we'll just dig into. And again, hopefully I'll have people on that can bring insight from like the mindset side of it, as well as like just the experience of creating content and dealing with it. Because there's a certain amount of like, doesn't matter what a therapist says your personality type is, and the manipulation trait that you're blah blah blah. It's if you've been in the trenches, like a Clover, I don't think you've gone to school for how to manipulate people's minds, but you've probably been around online communities long enough to know, you might not name them the same 6 personality types, but if this guy's acting like this is how you deal with it, and if that chick is acting like that, this is how you deal with her.
Why'd you say chick?
Because girls and guys can be jerks.
Oh, okay. So we're still talking about trolls?
No, I'm trying to end it, but I also didn't want.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I know it's tough to change topics, but
in troll speak.
Yeah, jump in and add anything. Of course, you were out there listening, Angelina from California. Thanks for jumping in.
Yeah, thanks for having a daily gun show. I missed it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had I've had trolls before. Actually, I get trolls kind of often.
And that's, we're all talking this whole time from the guy's side of you, which is crazy. One perspective, 100%, because I can't even imagine the levels and the amount of trolls girls get for doing anything online.
Well, most people think Owl and Anchor is run by a guy. Like, I can't tell you how many messages I get that start with, "Hey, bro," then, "Hey, man." So that's all one thing. But I mean, people talk shit. What is that noise?
Somebody's doing something weird.
Oh, it sounded like labor breathing. So people talk shit about my stuff all the time, whether they're messaging me, they're commenting publicly on my things on social media or whatever. And, I always find it's the people that don't do jack shit. Like, they don't do anything. They don't come up with anything. They don't have any ideas. They don't have any, fucking review videos or whatever. They're just talking shit. So it's, I don't know. I'm sure you guys covered this, but I mean, you're fucking with weak people, or they're fucking with you. So it's kind of like, how much time are you going to give this of your day?
And again, it's one of the, you've hit on a couple of different, I guess, things that I discovered were ways that people deal with it. And one of them is to validate to determine if it's actually just poorly written constructive criticism or an attempt at constructive criticism versus just being mean or abusive or manipulative. Because many of these are manipulative. They're not just abusive. Like, there's rarely people that are just at least it seems like there's rarely people that just are sadistic. Like there's personality types that are trying to manipulate. So anyway, if you can tell by Angelina's like saying, you go look at their account, and one of the strategies is to look and see if nothing they've done is positive ever, then it's like one of those motivational posters. Don't take advice from someone you wouldn't pay for advice from. Like if they can offer nothing but negative to the world, why would you expect them? You're never going to win with them.
Yeah, here's a pretty good example. I used to do these things on Instagram Live where I would show working on some kind of art. And people would come in, engagement was good, there was dialogue. I mean, it was a good time. But this one dude jumped in and was talking shit about me using Illustrator. And then someone said, like, oh, do you use it? And he's like, no. So you're telling me that I'm shit at this, but you don't even know how. And it's like, and those are always the people that are, am I allowed to say the S word on here? Like still?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the people that are talking shit. It's people that don't do shit. It's people that, they don't make fucking videos. They're just talking shit to people that do, because maybe they want to and they just lack, the capacity or the skill or the knowledge to even do it, instead of saying like, hey, who's in here? Ghost, can you teach me how to make a fucking YouTube intro? Like, try that maybe, instead of like, hey Ghost, your YouTube intro looks like shit.
Well, and again, you got in here later.
I hear you.
But that's that's from the side of someone who's creating. And when you're on the other, when you're not of that mindset, you don't have the same, that wouldn't be a challenge, right? That would be like, that would be a win. Like, oh, they got so frustrated. They, I knew they were going to say that, and that's the win. So there's people with different motivations out there to throw, sticks in the spokes.
When people do shit like that, they're looking for a reaction. And like 95% of the time, you give it to them.
Because again, that's manipulative. They understand, they can tell by that's their gig. Like, oh, I like to screw with people, and this is the kind of person that's easy to screw with. Dink, somebody that's got spokes in their bike. Dink, right. I knock them down. I win. And anyway, so I guess, like you said, it's all about, we're going to be talking about not just that stuff, because that's some of the like shining a light on it. But like I say, once you start getting into the various strategies of interpreting it and dealing with it, it gets pretty interesting. So each one of these things is basically going to be a weekly topic. And again, I'm going to talk about things every Thursday, so that it's not in reaction to anything, or it's not whatever, but also so that we can continually talk about it, so that it becomes something that we're able to resist without thinking about it. I think, again, that since it happens so rarely, it can throw people off. And the reason it throws people off is because it happens so rarely. So it's one of those things where if you inoculate yourself to it, if you're aware of how it may go down, the type of situation, just like training for any kind of CCW encounter, right? Any kind of lethal force incident where we might have to protect ourselves. We anticipate all different kinds of scenarios, so that whatever it is that actually happens, hopefully isn't completely off guard. We've had at least some idea of how to react quickly and, to a lot of stimulus at once. So same kind of thing. If you're going to start creating content, let's let people know, hey, here's how you use your camera. Here's how you use your wallet. Here's how you use your brain and your ears and your mouth holes and your fingers when you're typing. And start off with a project. I suspect if we start off people who are creating content with a good solid awareness of how to deal with the 5.6% of people that are going to be negative, or just, like to be miserable, and, spread that around, then they can look at it in a much more healthier way and have different expectations from their projects. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I gotta go to sleep. I gotta debate a Moms Demand Action person on NPR tomorrow. So.
Oh my God.
Right on. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, so I gotta get to sleep.
Have fun with that.
Yeah, it is what it is. All right, thank you guys, and I'll talk to you later.
Take care, Joe.
That horse brings up an awesome point, and he's got a link out there. You can jump anytime you want. So does Patriot, so does Woods, so does well, I guess I don't send him to Z anymore after years of never jumping in, but he can have one if he wants, of course. And then who else is out there? Budget has a link too. But if it's too late, no worries. But Dead Horse has a great point. Remember, he says, "Can I?" No, I'm the duck. But remember, in order to be a better person in the way you treat others, you first have to be happy with yourself. Self-growth and character is paramount to the way you treat others, and that's definitely one of the underlying things here that I didn't bring up yet. That's why I mentioned that. So thanks, Dead Horse, for bringing that one up. That was certainly one of the key things to the philosophies, I guess, to most of the ways of dealing with it. Most of the people that talk about dealing with online negativity are not negative people. Most of the people that deal with it on YouTube, at least, where I did some looking around and a little bit of online, mostly on YouTube, the people that talk about it are the people that are optimistic and looking forward. So if you look at their other content, some of them, as I was digging in, were awesome. And I was like, I need to know more from this place. Like, it either did a good cartoon version, you know, those animated cartoons, like they did a good animated info, what's that called? Like whatever, you know, little nice video. I want to see what else they offer. So I looked around, and that's definitely something that's similar to many of them, is that, you know, physically fit for sure, but just understanding that you're putting out good quality stuff and just a sound foundation on your own end makes you a lot less susceptible, because what they're doing is they advertise the, whatever you want to call these people that are calling them trolls is kind of dumb, because it's a spectrum of people, right? But the people on that spectrum or whatever that are trying to throw negativity around or whatever, they're looking for a certain thing. And it's just like a criminal who's looking for a victim. They're going to look for a victim. They're not looking for the cop who's aware, you know, who's the undercover sting, right? They're looking for the person who's unaware, phone, nose in the phone, big wallet with money sticking out, and oblivious to their surroundings. That's the victim they're looking for. So if you are, you know, whatever the epitome of that is as you're creating content out there, you know, then it's just going to attract the ones that are out there just sniffing around for easy. Because again, they are whatever they are, what they are. But that's definitely something that, you know, physically and just whatever the other words would be, you know, aware of your project and solid with your, you know, comfortable with your project and confident with it. Maybe that's the word. You're not going to get that stuff.
I just want to add that I don't think that Ghost has a shitty YouTube intro.
Well, I do, but thanks for the encouragement.
No, I mean, I think I was just, I think it's
No, I
actually, I actually saw it, I don't know, a week ago, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, actually.
Well, I think going back into the whole creator side of things is it all comes down to what we were talking before. It's just being comfortable and confident in who we are as individuals. And, you know, and this is just in life in general. If you're not confident in who you are, then you can't worry about what other people think because you have your own problems. When you've reached that adulthood, and I think P&W Woods out there said it, you know, there's a difference between being a grown-up and being an adult. Is an adult is an age, a grown-up is a mindset, and we all reach that grown-up status at different points in our lives, and that comes when you're confident and you're comfortable where you are in life. And you know, people that think that I'm an asshole, and I am, but I also am very comfortable where I'm in life. I have enough friends. I'm not looking for more. If you want to be a friend of mine, fantastic. But I'm not out looking for friends. And I think there are a lot of people out there that are searching for gratitude, and they're searching for, you know, you're an awesome person. And I think once you reach that time in your life when you are very comfortable with who you are as a person, then the rest of it just doesn't mean anything. You know, I don't care if people like me or not. And that's people that know me personally know that to be true. I really don't care because I know that I've got my family and my friends that are going to call me on my bullshit. So I don't need anyone else calling on me on my bullshit because the ones that I truly care about, they call me out enough as it is. So I think just being comfortable with who you are in your own skin is really what it's all about.
All right. With all that said, we got Gunathon coming up next year. John was in here and he threw $10 down as a super chat because he's crazy rich, I guess. And thanks for that, I guess. And so I'm going to plug Gunathon, which is a project he's been working on. It'll be next year in April 25th, 2020 in Ashburn, Virginia. So it'll be a Virginia range day / orientation, I guess. I'm not really totally sure, but I think it's going to be similar to, I'm not sure what it's going to be. I think it's more than just a fiddle with guns and play with them, but I don't think it's going to be an event to buy stuff. Do you guys know more about it than me?
I don't know.
I know it's a gathering. I know it's an event, and I know that you're going to have range time, but I think there might be like speakers. It's going to be an interesting event. I think it's kind of a hybrid or development off of the typical show up, pull triggers, and buy stuff. There'll be a show up, get involved with the Second Amendment, maybe is a better way to describe it. So next time John's on, he can describe it better. Otherwise, I also put a link out there to his YouTube channel, so feel free to subscribe over there. He's only got 250 subs. I don't know if you guys see any.
I thought John was really putting the $10 up because he's a big Chevrolet IROC fan of the car. So I misunderstood his whole super chat.
What the hell was an IROC? That was a 2-door, 4-door car, right? It was like a 4-door car that they somehow only put 2 doors in.
Oh. Yeah, it was like a Trans Am wannabe or something like that. Or
that's a high-end Camaro, man.
Okay, I was thinking
a Camaro. Is that what it was? Okay.
I was thinking of what's that other car? Anyway, I was thinking of some other car. But IROCs were like mid 80s, 87 maybe, right?
Mm-hmm. Early mid.
I mean, they were 80 something. Yeah.
Yeah, early mid 80s. You had the IROC, you had the Berlinetta, then you had the Z28.
Why don't you each get a challenge because nobody gets a free ride on the Daily Gun Show and the new version of the Daily Gun Show. Go grab a comment that you want to address if you want. We can address those. Otherwise, we can go back to what happened today in the past, which is the Modus 50 BMG machine gun underwent its first trials today on October 15th of 1918. Tomorrow, well, not tomorrow.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, so think about that. This late in the year, so it's a model in 1918. It must have done pretty good in those October trials because it only has a couple of months to still get the name 1818. You know what I mean? Or 1918, right? Because it's in a Modus in 1918. And 1918.
Right.
And it's still one of the most historic weapons of war. I mean, it's still used, and it's still. I remember the first time that I ever got to fire one in the Marine Corps. I was like, "Oh, now this is something else." I mean, it's something that, man, the Modus is unbelievable.
Today is also the day that a famous television show premiered on television. Today. And
Golden Girls?
No, famous television show premiered on the television, and
who's the boss?
I'll give you the date, 1951. So
I Love Lucy.
Bonanza.
So why do you say I Love Lucy? Why do you say Bonanza?
Because 1951.
Why do you say Bonanza?
Because it was a famous 50s show. I don't know. I have no idea.
It was actually I Love Lucy, so it's pretty good either guess or knowledge. Can't tell. But
no, was I Love Lucy one of the first original sitcoms, if I'm not mistaken?
Pretty damn good one.
I don't know.
I think it was the first of something. I can't remember if it was the first sitcom or it was something about the first something. I don't know.
It was like the first
I know it's very
one
important.
There was like some shit about them laying in bed together that was the first on TV. Lucy being pregnant was a thing on TV. Like a first. There's all kinds of shit like that.
Well, it was also the first, I guess, mixed marriage. I mean, on TV.
No, it's
I guess. I don't know.
It says when you go look at Wikipedia, it says that there were 6 seasons and then a couple of comedy hours, 3 seasons of comedy hour after the 6 seasons. Were. It says broadcast history. I Love Lucy aired Mondays from 9 to 9:30 on CBS for its entire first run. Each year during its summer hiatus, was occupied by various replacement series. What does this even matter? Why are they telling me all this? No, it doesn't. It says broadcast history. Oh, I thought it meant like history, like, famous things. It just literally means it's just a paragraphs about when it ran. Nothing in here about like its first of this or anything.
Did you ever watch Lucy Tuesdays on Nick at Night?
No, I never watched Nick at Night. I was alive when Lucy was just on TV.
Like when it was new?
No, hell no. But like millions of reruns later, it was the free rerun or something. Like if they didn't want to pay for a show, like Lucy and those kind of shows would be on. So,
Right.
like, I don't know. I think I must have probably seen every one of those 6 seasons, like at least 3 times. Right? There's just when there was nothing else on a Saturday, then like Lucy and Long Range was on Sunday, but that's when I remember having to watch Lucy when there was just literally nothing else on TV, except for boring stuff for your grandma or something. So I never would have watched Lucy on a Nick at Night ever. Like I will never watch Lucy again. I've seen it way too many times.
Oh, I was like intentionally watching fucking Lucy.
But you haven't seen each episode like 5 times.
Oh no, yeah, I have. Because I have, I downloaded it sometime when, LimeWire and torrents and all that was all hot and heavy. That's one of my downloads. Was Lucy, so I'd watch it all the time.
I do remember growing up and loving the old Lone Ranger show. So yeah, Lone Ranger was big in my household.
Yeah, I won't even watch that. But then Pants is saying Beverly Hillbillies. That was definitely at the same time. Like all those 50s black and white shows, like they were always on like right before something good or like right after cartoons or something. So you'd see them, but nobody ever was like, "Oh, I got to go watch Lucy." Like it was just there all the time. Or at like 3 a.m, that's when Lucy would be on.
I fucking like quote Lucy situations all the time.
Yeah,
now,
but
I will
again,
say that the Andy Griffith show was, I'm not a huge fan. I like it. I respect what it was, but my dad, like, man, like Andy Griffith was like that was his thing,
same thing. That's one of those shows that I'm not going to go watch that. Like I've seen it, every single one of them twice. And then the other one where the guy was funny and he was in the Marines. Some other guy.
Oh, Gomer Pyle.
Yeah, the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So I thought of them as like my dad's shows. Like, why would I want to watch my
Exactly,
mom's
yeah.
shows? It's like I'm not going to watch old people shows. I already had to watch them once or 3 times.
The Andy Griffith show still holds up.
I mean, it probably does because back then it seems like they crafted more, right? They were, I mean, I can see why you like Lucy. I don't think there wasn't like too much left to chance, right? Like they spent a lot of money. They knew what was going on. Like that's programming. Like they put a lot of into those shows.
Lucille Ball is like the fucking queen of physical comedy. No one does it better.
Well, I know, but again, I think the reason you say that is because of how it seems like they're effortless, but I think they knew like everything about camera angle and lighting. Like if you watch, there needs to be more shows about like those people had to have like the weirdest makeup on for those black and white cameras to like work, right?
Yeah.
Like there was just all kinds of weird stuff that they had to know. And it was like you say, it was like flawless. Like we didn't think about it, but that's because she had to be some kind of weird contortionist from like the old stage days to know like
Right.
the camera's going to see this like this. So I need to twist around and you know what I mean? Like they were just so able and cameras were like so rusty and shit. Like I think it was hidden how much effort they put into it. Or like the Honeymooners. Like
The Honeymooners, yeah, Jackie Gleason.
immense amount of work and it just looks like they're out there farting around, right?
When you talk about Lucille Ball and Jackie Gleason and Carol Burnett and all of these classics, and you say, no one's ever done it better. Well, it's because they were the first at whatever they did. Carol Burnett's variety show, no one had seen something that like raw before. And so everyone tries to, be them, and they're never going to be like they were. No one's going to be another Lucille Ball. There's not going to be another Jackie Gleason because they were the original. But you're right. I mean, they were just doing it how they did it. They didn't know what they were creating. They were just hoping that someone liked it, and then they become historical. That's kind of the cool thing.
Budget jumped in. jumping in.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, you've been listening for a while, so if you want to jump back on an old topic, feel free. Otherwise, we were just chatting about the, I Love Lucy. So if going from I Love Lucy to the new ones, you still like the new ones? Now, I don't have much love for I Love Lucy, but there's no freaking way I'm ever watching a colorized Lucy. Like, I only will deal with black and white Lucy.
Well, the Lucy Disney Comedy Hour, which is what you're referring to, is good on its own because they had some pretty big, like they had one with Tallulah Bankhead, which was fucking hilarious, and Maurice Chevalier, that like French singer from like the 30s and 40s and shit. He was in it, so those were pretty good, but they were colored Lucys, which was weird, but it was kind of like a whole new Lucy.
It was like the sellout Lucy. Like, it's like, oh, come on, Lucy. What are you doing?
Yeah, and then when she got like weird hair, she got like a weird haircut thing. Like maybe it was her like 2008 Britney.
Now, you also don't know what it's like to have to watch Carol Burnett every week. So when Lucy comes along trying to act like Carol Burnett, you're like, hey, Carol Burnett already has this role. Now Lucy's coming along trying to act like Carol Burnett. At least in the way I seen it, because I'm pretty sure I seen Carol Burnett live, and Lucy was reruns, but like they wouldn't play those reruns till much later in my life then, because I didn't see those till cable probably.
See, I enjoyed Carol Burnett because the whole dynamic with Carol Burnett and Tim Conway and all these people, they were, it sounds weird by looking at it now, but they were extreme cutting edge at the time. They were doing stuff that you're like, holy shit, you can't say that,
And they were live, right? That was what was neat.
And they were live, yeah. And that's some of the great thing, they were the Saturday Night Live before Saturday Night Live. They're doing sketch comedies and they were hilarious. And their whole thing was to try to make the other ones laugh. And, if you guys ever watch it, Tim Conway is maybe the greatest straight guy ever. And the guy just wouldn't laugh. And they were doing everything they could to try to make each other laugh live. And that's what made it funny.
Well, it made it funny after you'd seen a whole bunch of them in a row. Because if you just
that's
came
true.
in
Yeah.
and it would be like, what is this? Like, this is just slapsticky. And that's what happens to Saturday Night Live all the time, I think. Or it used to back in the day. Like, it would be funny, and then it would too many inside jokes, and then they'd have to clean house and start all over.
Yeah, exactly. Saturday Night Live has turned into an absolute. And I like Saturday Night Live. I like the concept of it.
There's still some funny stuff. I mean,
There's still some funny ones, but
you
they're very few and far between.
You got to put politics aside, but there's still some very funny stuff on Saturday Night Live nowadays.
I haven't watched it, and I can't even remember. I quit liking it with
YouTube clips because
Wayne's World. I quit watching it.
Yeah,
that was the last time I was watching it.
I fell out as far as watching the whole things. I mean, yeah, it was back in the 90s, the whole Adam Sandler, David Spade, Chris Farley, that kind of era. And but the newer stuff, I mean, I still keep up and have since I quit watching like the whole thing. And they had really good bands and artists on too back then. And nowadays it's all crap. I'm not digging the modern music. But the new stuff, I catch clips on YouTube and stuff pretty regular. And like I said, I couldn't sit down and watch a whole show, I don't think. But there's some really funny stuff that's still on there. So there are a few writers and a few of the comedians on there that pull off some good stuff every now and then. You got to put politics aside a lot of times and see it for what it is, which is comedy, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah, there's still some great skits, but it's funny if you go back to the history of SNL. And I was watching a YouTube video on this last week of how many people that are famous comedians today that got their start as SNL, not on screen talent, but writers. Mm-hmm. It's unbelievable the talent that they had over about a 25-year span of writers that were just, now they're famous comedians and they got their own shows sometimes, but the writing crew was just, I would have loved to have been back in the 80s and 90s and just been in the room with some of these people writing, because there's some funny stuff that came out.
Well, I mean, it's kind of been like that since the beginning, right? Like even the first, like whatever they call cast or whatever, like if it's somebody, I'm thinking of like a tree, right? Like you start doing the tree, like there's the guy that produces that show. I think he's still around. So he's probably the trunk of the tree, right? But as you get the guy that made like Animal House and all that, and then you get the what's his face, the Sandler, and yeah, there's like Chevy Chase, like so many branches of that. Bill Murray, like
Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, John Belushi,
Eddie Murphy was huge.
Eddie Murphy.
People realize how big Eddie Murphy was.
Every like decade, it's like giant branches coming off of that tree. That's definitely like massive. And then you start getting into, like you're saying, the writers and stuff. We're just talking like still stars. Like, yeah, it's crazy how influential. But that's just the one show. You can do the same thing with that one out of Chicago in Canada, where all the Canadians came down to Chicago to be in it with John Candy and them.
SCTV.
Yeah, like it's pretty much, maybe not as huge, but it's pretty similar over there, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you a show if you guys have never watched it. It's one of my favorite shows. It's on Hulu. It's called Letterkenny, and it's out of Canada. If you guys have never watched Letterkenny, you will piss yourself laughing. It's Jared Keeso is a comedian, and he started, and as part of this is a long time ago, he started doing his stand-up act, and he started acting like this small town guy in Canada and the problems of this made up town. And now it's a show. If you ever watch Letterkenny, you will love it.
It is very funny. I started watching it because Woods told me to watch it, and it's pretty funny.
Is it like, what's it like?
Okay, so basically what's happened is there's a small town in Canada, and there's 3 groups of people that live in this town. You have the Hicks, which are like the farmers. Then you have the hockey players, and then you have, they call the Skids, which are the meth heads and all of that. And they all hate each other, but it's such a small town, they all grew up with each other. And so the show is absolutely stupid, but it's hilarious because they take every stereotype of Canadians and exploit it within this dynamic of these 3 groups of people in a small town that hate each other, but yet they rely on each other too. It's hilarious. It really is.
Like Trailer Park Boys?
Not really.
Goofy?
No, it's just what you can do is go on YouTube and just do a search for Letterkenny problems, and that's where it started. Is they started once again? They started this stand-up routine. Then they got a couple of his buddies. They started, hey, let's do this on YouTube, and they did it. And then they created a show. But Letterkenny, it's all one word, Letterkenny problems, and it's hilarious. You guys have got to watch it if you like just funny stuff.
It might have been one of the Canadian channels. I subscribed to a couple of Canadian channels.
Yeah, it was big in Canada, and it got picked up by Hulu a couple years ago. Yeah, it was huge in Canada, but Hulu picked it up as a Hulu show.
Cool, except for Hulu. I don't like Hulu, but who cares? I'll see it anyway. All right, well, we talked a little bit about TV. That was based off of the riff off of today being the anniversary of Lucy coming out in 1951.
Wait, did I win something for that, or there wasn't a prize?
You get knowledge that
they get a patch from the patch wall.
You can lord that over all everybody.
I thought I'd get a patch from the patch wall.
We'll probably work something out. Let's see. So is anybody else? I guess I had a couple. I'm trying to, like I say, come up with a new format here. I'm going to structure the show basically like before, maybe a little bit tweak up. I'm going to definitely get rid of some of the training thing I was never into, and I'm just going to replace it with more nuts and bolts. I really would like to figure out a way to get the people that were at AmCon and the other people. So get people motivated and working going into 2020. At least find out if there's people out there that are willing to put up with a show daily on something like that. So I'll give it a try for a while here. So as I come up with the schedule, I thank everybody for being patient with me. Starship Troopers is our movie of the day. I don't know how much time everybody's got. I guess we've been chatting for a while, so if it's too late, feel free to ditch out. But Matt just had his bracket the other day. Did Starship Troopers win? I forget what won. Oh, I think I ditched out. I left the chat before I even knew who won, I think. But I don't remember. If somebody out there remembers who won. Anyway, Starship Troopers came up, so I had my list of movies here. Anybody want to throw anything in there about Starship Troopers? Is it too late?
Is that the one with the highway patrol officers and the meow?
No, that's Super Troopers.
Troopers.
Starship Troopers is the big bugs go to Puerto Rico.
If
No.
if you have ever read Heinlein's book, you had better be able to mentally separate the book from the movie in order to enjoy the movie. Because pretty much the only thing that's the same is John Rico's name, the fact that
like the concept.
There's bugs, there's arachnids involved, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now let me go through the room this way. Ghost, seen it?
Yes, I have.
Fan, not fan?
Either way. I mean, it was entertaining, but I wouldn't like.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, I got to see this.
I got to go through again then. Clover, seen it?
Oh yeah, many, multiple times.
Okay, I think from that enthusiastic answer, we understand Clover's POV on this one. Angelina, now that we tell you, it's the one where the space dudes are wailing on the big bugs, basically, kind of mosquito-looking bugs, and then other kind of fat beetles and stuff, but giant bugs, big as horses. You know the movie we're talking about?
No.
Oh, well, it's awesome. So next question, book. So I'm guessing, Ghost, you have not read the book.
No, I have not.
Okay, so that tells us a lot. And then Clover?
No clue. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never knew until now there was a book. So.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, neither did I.
Awesome
Yeah.
Conversation. I'm guessing again. I'll just assume Angelina because I've been wrong once here. So Angelina, you read the book?
No, I've never even heard of this whole thing.
Okay, and then of course, Budget. You read the book.
Many, many times.
Okay, so first off, let's start with Robert Heinlein. So Robert Heinlein, Stranger in a Strange Land, and Starship Troopers. I can't even list, but let's just say he wrote all kinds of interesting sci-fi books for young kids. Like, you know, how there's authors that write for different age groups. He is famous for writing for kids. So like kids that are teens and like just getting into learning about science and what the world's going to offer and are dreaming about. This is what, the 30s or 50s or something, kind of before movies were a big thing. So that's where he comes from. In addition, he writes just some, I mean, what's your, just real quick, Budget, what's your opinion of Stranger in a Strange Land?
It's different. I like it, but it opened my mind to some different ideas for sure.
There we go. So I think there you go. So I think Heinlein is one of my favorite authors of all times. Like, he is awesome.
Yeah.
And Stranger in a Strange Land is uniquely one of the best books ever written, period. So it's about, I'll let Budget describe it, the book. And remember, you're describing it to Ghost, a Marine who's not even read it yet. Can you imagine being Ghost and getting to read Starship Troopers for the first time? Holy
wow.
moly. And Clover.
You're assuming that I can read, right?
Dude, you can get it on audiobook. I seriously, I can't wait to hear what you think of this book.
Burn!
Wow.
No,
I can feel the hoorahs coming out.
I've never read the thing. I've only listened to it on audio, but I'm just saying, it's an enjoyable, like 11-hour unabridged. Oh, it's the best book ever. Seriously, you're gonna freaking love this book, Ghost. Okay, so anyway, this is who you're describing it to, and then Angelina, who I don't know if you like what he's about to describe here or not, but it's certainly, in my opinion, the best example of what he's about to describe here.
Okay, in the book, the war against the arachnids is really kind of secondary. It's not necessarily the focus. I mean, it's a plot device to move the story along, but really what the story is first off, you have to start by describing the setting. You know, as in the movie, the setting of the book is a world wherein veterans got tired of all the bullshit from the civilians and the politicians, and at some point they took over and they set things up so that in order to be a citizen, which I think some of you may have heard me say this before, that in order to be a citizen, you have to perform some form of public service. Now, that could be counting, and anybody who wants to do it can do it. They'll find something for you to do, something crappy, something terrible, something demeaning, something that may even be dangerous and life-threatening. But you know, if all you can do is count the hairs on caterpillars, that's what you'll be doing. If you can fight and be a soldier, that's what you'll do. You know, it just it depends on what your abilities are, what your skills are, and what the needs of the Federation is. Now, you
And
can
then
you
as
don't
a
have
citizen, yeah, okay, go ahead.
go ahead. Now you don't have to be a citizen. You don't have to. You don't. But if you want to vote, if you want to hold certain government jobs, if you want to have a say in how things are ran, then you must be a citizen. And in order to do that, you have to have some form of investment, i.e., have completed your term of service. Well, in the book, John Rico desperately wants to be a citizen, just as he did in the movie. He joins, despite what his father and mother want. They don't want him to be because they're rich. They're not citizens. They don't see any need for it. So, okay, that's pretty similar. Carmen was barely. It wasn't quite the way that Carmen was portrayed in the movie. Okay.
There was no girl in the book.
What's that?
There was no girl in the book, even. I don't think.
Yeah, she was there, but Dizzy Flores was a was a Puerto Rican male trooper, not the other chick.
The movie story was not anything. The book isn't about anything that happens in that movie. Like, it's just the world that it's in is the same as the book. That's it.
Most of the book takes, well, a good portion of the book, I'd say at least a third, takes place talking about Johnny's time in boot camp and the things that happen to him there, and how, you know, he comes to start believing in the Federation and that and being a citizen, and that along with being a citizen comes responsibilities and everything. I mean, this world is a lot different from ours in that this you're accountable for your actions. You know, the veterans have set things up so that you must answer for the things you do. There is no juvenile delinquents get away with garbage, you know, like they do today. You know, there are, you can be flogged publicly for certain offenses. Just as, you know, if you've watched the movie, how Johnny got flogged during basic training. Well, that kind of thing has happened. And whatnot. But anyway, it does get into the war with the arachnids, but there's also a war with this other race called the skinnies at the same time, and they kind of bounce back and forth. Now, the troopers are in powered armor in this, not, you know, they're the little suits that they have, non-powered armor suits that they have in the movie. It's just, I don't know. It's mostly about sacrifice in order to accomplish something. It's about sacrificing for, well, how was it that they put it in the movie about you know, a citizen will sacrifice himself for the body politic, and that it's a lot like that. It emphasizes public service. It emphasizes personal responsibility and accountability. It emphasizes the brotherhood of men and women who fight together. It emphasizes, you know, there's really some seriously hardcore conservative values are emphasized in it.
I forget the actual. I've done. You can watch a video on a better explanation of like the what's the politics or the philosophy behind it. I guess a better word. Yeah. But the deal is that the movie is this like buffoonish, like exaggerated, like I don't know what the word is, but like, you know,
it's a caricature.
It's a character, exactly, of the environment, of the universe that the book is written in. But the book is
because Verhoeven's a damn communist.
But the book, well, the guy who wrote the movie, he hated Heinlein.
The director hated Heinlein with a passion.
But that's a whole nother layer to this that just makes it awesomer. So what the root of this whole thing is Heinlein is an excellent writer, and he's got serious political theory and philosophy that's basically individualist, not statist, right? And he writes this book, and the book is written in the Starship Troopers, everybody knows from the movie, the universe, Starship Troopers and everything, but it's written about Johnny, how he joins as like kind of like most people join the military that I am aware of, I know personally, and everybody I know basically joins the military out of some diluted ass reason, and then you're young and some of it's manipulated, and then you regret it and you cherish it, and you know what I'm saying? Like everybody's got this relationship with their enlistment, and everybody who didn't enlist has a similar relationship with their country, right? And it's like he gets into that dynamic, and that's all it is. So it's Rico joining the military, going in as like a kid and understanding. And he writes this 11-hour, I think it's like 9 or 11 hours to listen to it all on tape. And there's some battles and there's some challenges, and he gains rank, but it's basically from the guy's mind's perspective, Johnny Rico, a guy who grows up on planet Earth in a powered battleship suit, like Budget's saying, it's way more cooler in the book as far as his tech. They're in powered battle suits that jump out of spaceships onto planets individually. They do sometimes use the drop ships and stuff, but way cooler individual. They shoot nukes all the time. They're shooting individual nukes all the time in the book. So he's like a much more individual badass. And he goes from like being part to being integral to being a leader, and the mindset and the concept of how a person develops in their relationship with their government and with their community as individuals. And it gets into some deep political stuff, and it's challenging, and it's done in a sci-fi environment with bugs and nuclear battle suits. It's freaking awesome. It's seriously one of the most, it's probably got too much testosterone from some people, or like this guy, the guy who
certainly did for Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah, the guy who wrote the movie, Rage, like he could not handle the book. It was like, too rugged individualism for him, I guess. So he writes this movie in order to buffoon everything and try to make it look like this, like Heinlein, the writer's a Nazi, right? He's like, I'm going to make this guy look like the biggest Nazi ever.
Deliberately, even with the Nazi-style uniforms that he had him wear.
And instead, he makes the coolest freaking movie ever that totally does not do anything that he wants and appeals to everybody he hates. It's awesome. So this dude thinks he's trolling everybody and makes a badass movie that everybody likes. And the book is even better. And then you get into the cartoon, which, again, is, I think, one of the best. Like the cartoon is the book. So watch the cartoons. There's like a series of them, and it's like the animated book.
I might actually have to watch those. I gave up on Starship Troopers. I watched the first.
No, watch the cartoons of the book.
I watched the first one. Did not watch any of the movies after that.
It's not the book as far as like all this political internal stuff, but it's the book as far as the actual campaigns and the skinnies and the water planets and stuff. So yeah, if you ever get a chance, listen to the book on tape, Starship Troopers. You're gonna freaking love it. I figured every Marine just listened to it.
I didn't know there was a book.
Isn't it on the reading list of one of our military academies?
I thought it was. It's on YouTube though. You can literally just go to YouTube, get a version without any commercials. It's like 9 or 11 hours long, one video, no commercials. It's
yeah.
Up there.
You got you'll Ghost. I'm pretty sure you'll be saying "oorah" a few times.
I'm looking forward to it. I gotta
go. The one that's closest to you bet. Thanks again for jumping in. Island saying isn't Starship Troopers 3 closest to his book? I don't think so. I think the last cartoon, the one that's like something about Mars, that's the closest one to the book, where it's a cartoon of the dude and Izzy. It's got the characters wrong because they're trying to kill the characters from the first movie, but the meat of that movie is more the book. But anyway, yeah, Clover, if you've never done it either, then when you guys drive, I think you could listen to that with 2 people and still dig it.
Right.
It's awesome.
It's definitely like a consumable. Like Heinlein writes in a way that you don't have to like put on reading glasses and get a notepad to keep notes, because it's entertaining, but it's got some deepness to it.
Mm-hmm. Another good one, if you haven't read by Heinlein, would be The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Without any doubt whatsoever.
Which one is that one?
I'm sorry?
Which one is that one?
The Moon is a Harsh Mistress.
Yeah, what's the thumbnail of that one?
the moon is colonized. It started out kind of like Australia did, where they're sending, the dregs, the scum of the earth, prisoners, whatever, convicts from from all different cultures. Kind of anybody that Earth didn't want, they sent to the moon, and they've been living up there, and they've developed their own society as things have went, kind of blending a bunch of different cultures with regards to such things as like marriage and serious vibe for personal responsibility, personal accountability. It ends up where they're still running it as a prison, and they have a warden there who's accountable to Earth. So they raise wheat and other crops in the moon, because they mine for pockets of ice to get the ice to make the air and water and whatnot. And the warden runs things, okay? And you're either a convict who's been sent there, or you are there because you were born there because your parents or grandparents or whomever were convicts. Anyhow, things come to a head when they realize that they keep sending their finite resources, their water and their air, in the form of crops, because nothing disappears, everything only transforms. So they use their water, they use their air, they use their nutrients and whatnot into, they transform that into these crops that they then send to Earth. They have a magnetic catapult that they load the crops into these giant steel boxes, and it launches it out, puts into Earth orbit, and they eventually drop.
And then let's just say, without spoiling it, they quit doing that. I think I remember the one.
They quit doing it. They get the main character, Manny, works on the computer that runs the whole thing. Well, that computer begins to become intelligent, self-aware, and he tells Manny, "Hey, dude, this is what's going to happen. You guys are eventually going to run out because you're not getting anything back from Earth."
And it gets like multiple levels, almost like, it definitely the plot gets cool. It doesn't just resolve.
Oh, yeah. They end up rebelling. Let me just put it like that.
Yeah. And so I've mentioned before that he's written all kinds of, like, they're not even that short. Like, to listen to them, they're all like 2 hours on tape to listen to all the, what do they call them? The boy novels or something?
Yeah.
Novels. And because he wrote them for like some boys sci-fi magazine back in the day. Like he had a gig to write one a month or something like that. So have you listened to all those?
If you've ever heard the phrase, "there ain't no such thing as a free lunch," Tanstoffel, that's where it comes from, is "The Moon is the Harsh Mistress."
Really?
Great book. Need to read it.
So I was going to say, I've read so many of them or listened to so many of them that they get mixed up, because a lot of them have to do with the moon. So there's...
Yeah, he's done a lot of stories with the same themes.
And they're not like Asimov, he's got a whole bunch, and they're kind of in the same universe. So like if you read all those books together, it's kind of like a whole bunch of the same giant puzzle pieces to the same thing, where Heinlein does similar, but I don't think they're designed to all be.
I don't believe they're connected.
Scratch every time, right?
Yeah. Although I will give you a caveat with Heinlein. He is extreme libertarian in politics, and you'll see this as you read the books. There are some things in there that a lot of people will find objectionable, but again, it's just kind of, particularly when it comes to personal relationships, let's say, but again, it's more of a personal liberty. Do whatever the hell you want to do, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, but you're accountable for what you do.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, because it's not something that gets my goat or pokes me or nothing. So when I read that stuff, I'm like, it didn't need to be in there, but I don't care. But you know what I mean? Like, I know exactly what you're talking about. There is some weird stuff in his stuff once in a while. I guess I forget about that, because I just
what the hell is it? Stranger in a Strange Land's one of those too.
Yeah, but I like that one. I thought when I first read that one when I was a kid, that was out of nowhere. Like I don't know what I thought I was going to start reading, and when I read that, I was like, that hits on so many levels. But I guess you could read that thing from a very if you had a very strong position and you read that and it was against your very strong position, like you'd freak out probably, right?
Yeah.
All right, so FYI, you Starship Trooper fans, Starship Trooper takes place in the same universe as Total Recall. Total Recall could be considered a prequel to Starship Troopers. I would agree with you if which Total Recall are you talking about? Because there's the real Total Recall where they actually have a time tunnel thingy to Mars, right? And then they've got the dumb new Total Recall, which has better robots, but that's a tunnel through the stupid Earth, which they faked. So which Total Recall are you talking about? Because if you're talking about the real Total Recall, and Dead Horse does have a link, you could jump in here. I emailed you one.
Sounds like he's talking about the real Total Recall that happens on Mars, because he said that as a result of what happens on Mars leads to the Federation's rise to power. Yeah, he said the original.
Because here's my challenge to that. And there might be something to that, because I don't remember the pyramid thing at the end, but there could be something there. But what happened? Why aren't there time tunnels in Starship Troopers? Did we lose that tech? I don't believe in losing tech, right? Like, we would have a way to time tunnel to whatever planet. We wouldn't have to take them big, slow-ass space boats.
Yeah, I don't know.
But otherwise, I don't know. That's interesting. What's your favorite Total Recall? Old or new?
Oh, the first one. The first one with Arnold.
Original.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like the
That,
first
that
one.
new one with Colin Farrell wouldn't have been bad. Was that Colin Farrell? I think that was.
So. Let's just
Yeah,
say
that new one with him wouldn't have been bad if they'd have just called it something else.
Yeah, see, I have no love for Total Recall, so I don't really care if they call it Total Recall, because it kind of wasn't even Total Recall except for his wife. I mean, otherwise, like, seriously, they screwed with a lot of it. And then the boobs, like, kind of, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if they would have called it,
I wanted to see the midget hooker make an appearance, but she didn't, I don't think.
But I wasn't expecting much out of it, but I really liked it. And then the robots in it are like iRobot mixed with Battlestar Galactica or something, like,
yeah,
mean iRobots, or like iRobot cops. And I thought that got me. Like, I'll watch that movie 1,000 times. Those weird elevators for a while, and the robots running all around. I mean, it's well made, and it's so weird that I don't ever remember. I mean, I kind of remember the plot of it, but I don't pay attention enough that I can watch that movie over and over and over and over. I really like the new one. But
I'd have been happy with it if they'd have called it something else.
Yeah, if they would have called it Robot Hole in the Earth movie, then I would have been just as happy, because it wasn't Total Recall for sure. And isn't the end, like, the real Total Recall has a really good thing at the end, and this one was boring, and I think they like knew that they couldn't do what the original one did, so they just didn't do it as good. It just, they could have done it better. But that's what happens, because I think now, it's just the same as anything. They know they can throw something out there, and it's just a math equation at some point, right? Like, we were talking about that a little bit, I think, in Matt's chat, and I don't know if I got a good answer. Like, is there a recipe that says, like, on a show you can't have, like, you don't want to have all good episodes because you want to make your good episodes look better by having boring episodes? Mm-hmm. Or is it just like somebody's artistic vision or something is just happens to be boring sometimes, and that's why there's boring episodes? But I think it's the same with movies. Like, there's always sometimes there's like a lame aspect to a movie, and I always wonder if it's like, this thing they spent a lot of money on this, a lot of editors had to see this, like, maybe it was a decision to leave some parts of it dumb, for that idea of like leaving a smudge so that there's something for people to critique. Like, this way they won't critique the movie, they'll critique the smudge or something. Like, maybe there's a theory to it.
Sometimes to progress the story is boring, unfortunately.
Well, a good writer can hide that, but I know what you mean. Like, sometimes if something's super complicated, or like everybody watches it and they're like, what does this even mean? They have to add something that's kind of a little awkward to kind of bump it back on track or something, maybe.
Yeah. I'm going to get out too. I will catch you guys tomorrow.
All right. Well, I'm not going to make Budget stay in here. He's even further east. So with that, we'll wrap it up. Hopefully it's a good chat. Again,
it's like a 2:15 here.
And hopefully we'll create a thing here that people can get into when they have the time, and we'll have a conversation that keeps people working on firearms-related content and going into 2020, either establishing new projects or reinforcing existing projects, or reviving projects that have gone dormant. That's always an option too. If we can offer some skill and some techniques and some motivation and some inspiration for people that have already done stuff, to show them some new things that might make some of the challenges they had before less annoying or less challenging, then I think we all win. So thanks to everybody who was a part of the show tonight. We had John in here. We had Clover from the beginning, just jumped out. Ghost was in here. Angelina jumped in for a bit. And Budget jumped in towards the end. We had Dead Horse out chatting in the text chat out there with Woods and Z and others. So again, thanks everybody for joining, and we'll continue to have these as often as possible to eventually get to show number 900. Budget, you want to plug anything on the way up?
Nope, I'm good. I mean,
Right on.
Budget
Thanks.
Guns and Gear Reviews, check it out.
Will do.